This is Wilson Morales from Black Film and TV talking to John Trefry and Denzel Whitaker, creators of 5150, which is a program that they will explain that will be at the Tribeca Film Festival. Hey, you guys, how are you guys?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Doing great.
So talk to me, who's going to start it off first as far as how 5150 came about?
Go ahead, Denzel.
Sure. All right. So 5150 in a nutshell came about back in 2017, if my memory serves me. So basically, I was coming off of the heels of something that I was working with my brother Kofi, and we were doing a project about Black mental health. And 5150 in its inception was kind of me going back through my recollection of just being a young child star, different friends who I grew up in the business with. Some of them fell wayside, different celebrities who I admired. You know, they were receiving public ridicule at the time and still do, you know, thanks to cancel culture. So 5150 in a nutshell was me sort of cracking that open and examining it. And I started with this, you know, rough draft, this rough idea. And then John we worked on a project together called Will the Machine. And just our synergy was, you know, cohesive right off the bat. You know, we really hit it out of the park with Will the Machine. And so when we sat down, I was like, hey, John, I got this project. You know, I feel like since we did such a great job on this, I feel like you would, you know, be interested in it. And John, you know, from day one, just was a champion of the project, and we just hit the page running. And that was the beginning of 5150.
John?
So you know, what was exciting, Wilson, was we originally envisioned, you know, the story of 5150 exploring Black mental health, as well as what it's like to be a Black celebrity in America. As a short film, that was something that we were, you know, Denzel and I had experience working on together, and we knew that we could make it, but we realized that it was a much bigger story and it was a bigger world. And so what we decided was, hey, let's go ahead and make the short film. We know that we can go to, you know, folks on Kickstarter and do it ourselves and not wait around for, you know, funding from a studio or network. But then let's use the short film as a way to get audiences excited about a TV series. So that's where we're at currently, and how we're now find ourselves, you know, with the project being featured at the Tribeca Festival.
And obviously, you know, if should it come to fruition and become a series, there's plenty of stories out there that you can, you know, get from. You know, it's like nowadays, you know, obviously you have your Law and Order, and I just recently saw there's a series on Amazon called Flack, which is basically from the PR world, you know, how to, you know, basically the Olivia Pope of PR, you know, saving people's careers and stuff like that. You think about now, as you mentioned, is cancel culture, you know, at any given time, you know, anybody, no matter how good your career is going, one mistake, whether it be by mistake, or maybe you're just finally getting caught out there, you know, you're judged, and, you know, the judge and jury's on social media. And you know, and the question is, it's one thing if you're losing your job, but now it's about you're losing your career, you know, and it's tainted and it's out there on Wikipedia forever, you know, in terms of what happened. And, you know, who knows how made that deter a person from gaining employment in any capacity, you know, based on what people are going to read and how they were, you know, tried by the jury, you know, by social media. You know, from the short film, obviously, you know, you're examining that. How much more do you want to explore once you get it to series? You know, like, it's one thing you do a short, but now if you get the funding to fully explore it, you know, like, I'm sure you guys have mapped it out as far as, is it going to be a half hour? Can we do an hour? Is it comedy, drama? Like, obviously, as you mentioned, you started off talking about mental health, you know, how much does that come into play?
So I think similar to the project that you mentioned, Flack, one of the things that John and I have been really keen on is that we want to peel back the curtain, you know, for the average day, you know, viewer, you know, people who are adjacent to the entertainment industry. I mean, we three here, we see it all the time. We're in the industry, so we know some of the ongoings that happen behind the scenes. But when the tabloids come out, everybody else in the world is just seeing what's only on that headline. and they don't know the person, and they're making snap judgments based off of a headline or based off of, news story after news story. And then, so as you said, with cancel culture and that public ridicule, everything about art is subjective. And, we're speaking about an artist who's prominent within the entertainment industry, and then he's expected to be this public figure, and he's expected to, know right from wrong. And again, we're judging another human, and every single human, I believe, is flawed. And so our character, for better or for worse, is an anti-hero, but at the same time, too, like, there are qualities about him where he does want to do good. There are certain things and certain passions on his heart where he does want to be better for the world, but he might not necessarily know how to navigate and do that. On top of, if you catch him on the wrong moment or you catch him publicly, he might say something, whereas the package might not come out the way it should. And so immediately cancel culture will have those snap judgments and start judging him. So that's most certainly something that, John and I are very keen on touching on in the series. We want to crack this open. It's going to be hour long. That's what we can say thus far. But, we do want to continue to explore those dynamics, continue to explore the relationships that surrounds a character like this. So many people who, like I said, are adjacent to the celebrity are such an integral part to that celebrity's career, because they are the direct influences. And, you don't know what the day-to-day ongoings are. So when you see that news headline, what happened before that news headline actually broke is what we're looking to explore.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's scripted, right?
It is scripted. And if I could just piggyback for a moment, Wilson, on your question about what the series will explore is, in a nutshell, the premise of 5150 is about a world famous Black celebrity who's detained in a mysterious psychiatric facility after his erratic behavior and controversial political statements. So that's kind of where we start and where we find the character, as you, I'm sure, saw in the short. What we peel back in the series is we look back to some of the formative experiences that this celebrity experienced as he was developing as a actor in Hollywood. And through that, we understand that he's traumatized. He's carrying this deep-seated guilt and baggage from an event that happened early on in his career. And that's part of how we find him in present day, where he is narcissistic, self-obsessed, and really we're inspired by characters like Tony Soprano or Walter White, and really seeing this character as an anti-hero, as Denzel said. And the arc of his story over the course of the season is that it's his fall from grace and him really reconnecting with his humanity to become a better person and ultimately overcome the forces of they, which are a literal expression of some of the systemic pressures that especially Black celebrities experience in pop culture.
It's funny enough, you guys are talking, I'm already envisioning this in my head because all three of us are in business, and we can already think about like, oh, just think about what this guy is going through, and now think of it as a series, yada, yada, yada. And now, is this packaged already? Like, do you guys have a network, other producers, writers? Is this thing going on? Before we go into that, why are you coming down to Tribeca? What is the program you're coming down here for?
Sure. John?
So we are really excited, Wilson, to be participating with the Tribeca Creators Market. And so that's a group of creators like us who are showcasing work to industry executives, producers, folks from HBO, AMC, and others. And so we are, the project itself is going to be featured there. And then Denzel and myself are going to be in New York next week for part of the festival. And we're really excited at this stage, if we, just to dovetail into the next part of your question about where this project is at and in terms of packaging, we're really, really excited to have the amazing actor Jovan Adepo, who you'd know from Watchmen. He was nominated for an Emmy in his performance there. And also We have David Oyelowo as an executive producer. So that's, you know, where we are currently, and we're looking to really link arms with other more seasoned, you know, TV writers and producers, because Denzel and myself are, you know, early on in our careers, you know, in television. Denzel, of course, you know, has been, you know, on screen on The Purge and a lot of film projects. And this is our first television project, you know, behind the camera. So we're really, you know, at this stage, we're looking to link arms and create, you know, alliances so that we can bolster that package. And we've got the pilot written, and we've got the first season really broken out. But we're, you know, kind of early on in that journey.
Okay. The title, where did it come from?
The title actually comes from the California Penal Code. So, you know, when a individual is seen as a danger to themselves or others, and, you know, deemed mentally unstable per se, you could actually be subjected to a 5150, you know, which whatever authority is able to grant that, they would basically call it in. You would be subject to a 72-hour temporary hold within a psychiatric institute. And so that was kind of the overall nutshell of the short, because we were thinking about how can we make this, you know, economical while being impactful as well. And then over the course of that, we sort of broken it out like this is this celebrity's mental instability. And so the title still stands still for the TV series.
You know, and obviously when I seen the short with Jovan, and the mental part of it was what will make it seriously, as opposed to just a satire. You know, and I think I think it's easier to do a satire, but if you're taking it from that standpoint, the ways you guys are describing me, I can see how it's being fleshed out. Obviously, the writers will come up with different ways, because you certainly want to think the long run, you know, as far as if you're going to use one guy and how he can keep going. But when you think about the shows you mentioned earlier, between The Sopranos and, you know, Breaking Bad, hey, you know, it can go long if it's written well, you know. If it's written well, using those examples, there is material there that can go, you know. Who knows nowadays, because TV is constantly changing because of the pandemic, because the audience viewing, and, you know, who knows if it's rating wise, you know, everything takes into effect. You never know, you know. But when you're coming down to Tribeca, obviously you'll meet the right people, hopefully to get involved in this, you know. Is there a plan B if things down in New York don't come to fruition? Have you guys thought of that already, or you just kind of hoping that, like, hey, it's like you know, these conventions that come on, like MFIED, I think it is, or you know, all these Hollywood conference calls, you know, that happens. You know, do you have a plan B?
Yeah, great question, Wilson. You know, we're kind of doing this really by the bootstraps. You know, it's unconventional to do a short to series kind of pathway the way that we're doing it, and we're really taking it onto ourselves to kind of kick the door open, you know, no matter what happens at Tribeca. And to that end, what we've done in the past with projects like Will the Machine that Denzel mentioned was, you know, we went through traditional film festival, you know, the film festival route, but then we also released online. And so that's the exact same strategy we're going to do with 5150, whereby after Tribeca, we're going to release the short film to the general public. And we have great relationships with, you know, short film distribution folks to really raise awareness and create buzz for the show. So to answer your question, our plan B is really, you know, we understand the television marketplace, super competitive. We're newcomers, we're young guys in that space, but we think that if we can show, hey, look, you know, there's a lot of audience love and support for 5150, and we've already seen that with, you know, the Kickstarter and, you know, just our initial push to get the short made, and we think that that's going to continue through the release, and so we're going to just use that to help us, you know, blaze the trail forward, you know, whatever that may be. And you know, we're looking at, you know, seeing this eventually. Our goal would be, you know, seeing this on an HBO or a Netflix, and however we can get there, we're prepared to do that.
Okay, and then obviously, what do you got? What's your day jobs? You know, Denzel, are you still acting, or you know, what are you guys doing separately?
Oh man, that's funny. Yes, no, very, very much still acting. The beautiful thing about this is during the pandemic, you know, as John sort of mentioned with the Kickstarter, it was like a blessing in disguise, really, because everybody was at home. You know, there was that uncertainty of where the business is going to go. So even though John and I have been sitting on this project for about, you know, 2 maybe 3 years prior or whatnot, just developing it, David was at home, Jovan was at home. You know, in the midst of a pandemic, we were able to raise about $33,000 just through Kickstarter alone, and then some private equity. So we were really one of the first projects at the forefront of the pandemic to get back to shooting. And so, just like when people ask me, "Am I still acting?" No, about to kick off a film right now called "Too Marvelous for Words" with a producer I work with, Will Clevenger, on Cutthroat City. Had about 3 different projects dropped during the pandemic, you know, thank God for that. That was a blessing. So definitely my stock was still publicly in front of the camera while I was building behind the camera. So in terms of day job, like I'm committed to the industry. Yeah.
And John?
Yeah, so I run a production company called 4WT Media, and as Denzel mentioned, we previously worked on another, you know, short film project together. But beyond the narrative stuff that I do through my company, I also do a lot of branded content, working with companies like Google, Netflix, Microsoft, ZipRecruiter, and so you know, I think for myself and, you know, Denzel, this is a real moment of transition where for him, he's known more as an actor. For me, I'm known more as a commercial producer, but we've really been quietly building our portfolio and our slate of narrative projects and really just sharpening our sword. So we think that, you know, that time of, you know, doing that stuff to, you know, narrative shorts has really prepared us to, you know, really reintroduce ourselves to the industry in a way of, you know, hey, these guys are, you know, serious storytellers and they're capable of doing, you know, long form with 5150.
Well, hopefully, you know, this thing will take off. Obviously, congratulations on making it happen, and hopefully things will kick off once you're down at Tribeca. Let's see, let's hope for the best, and hopefully we'll talk more once it's set in stone and I see more of headlines and in the trades and more people are aware of it.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
it.
Wilson.
Thank you,
Really
Wilson.
appreciate it.